確かに。
確かに。
The main garden was essentially dead when I first moved to Yakushima. The people that had lived in the house before me had used it as a kind of burn pit. So there was a lot of melted plastic out there, old tatamis that were half burned, overgrown with invasive species and vines and what have you. So the garden was really kind of, it was barely alive. The only thing that was growing back there was turmeric that was on the fringes. I first learned about regenerative farming and landscaping basically from hippie friends in the United States who do that kind of work. I've been lucky over the course of my career to work on a lot of agriculture projects in different countries as well. Not just agriculture, but livestock and fisheries. And so over my career, I've learned a lot from farmers, and I learned a lot about the sort of organic alternates. Then in Yakushima, I met Tomonari Waku and learned about the Daiichi no Saisei method, which really integrated well with a lot of what I had also learned before. And of course, just A, with Waku-san and WAKUWORKS, and B, with Ecom, watching the way that you work and actually participating in that labor, giving my own labor just to learn, really brought home to me the benefits for that method of farming and landscaping. Deciding to adopt organic and regenerative farming and landscaping was really a no-brainer when it comes to the land. Learning in the past about how the non-organic and non-regenerative manner of gardening really just strips out the health of the land. I knew that the regenerative methods were going to have a lot more benefit and also be a lot easier to manage day to day. I think that's one thing that people don't seem to realize. They believe that regenerative landscaping and gardening somehow takes more effort. But I think that in the long term, it actually takes a lot less.
僕が思うに、ここの土地が、もともとの、土地の使い方がとても良かったと思います。昔の人がね、ここを大事に、このコンクリートとかを使わずに、この自然の石とか植物、木とか、そういった自然にあるものだけで、土地をうまく活用してたから、その滞りが少ない土地だったと僕は思いました。
I think that is a debt that we new people in Yakushima have to the older generation, is that we should be doing things the way that they did these things, because obviously they've worked across thousands of years here. And so the bad parts of the land were very small in comparison to the overall health here. And so that was just a little repair that we had to do. I have noticed a lot of changes since the work began. Firstly, the overall garden and land is a much more wild place. Even though the land was mostly healthy, there were still a lot of invasive species that were in here. And a lot of these trees were just absolutely overgrown with vines that were actually shortening the lives. And when, the air and water veins were laid through here, the air was less damp and cleaner. There was more wind. Overall, the land was just a lot healthier. And the one thing that I really noticed was a lot less mosquitoes, right? There simply weren't those stale, damp places where mosquitoes love to sort of lay eggs and hatch. And that's the main thing I noticed. I mean, 2 years ago at this time, there'd still be mosquitoes here, even in December, even with the cold. And so that's the main one that I noticed. Yeah. And also just the soil, everything, the water flows a lot better in here. You remember especially over there. I mean, that side of the land, the western side, was a swamp, right? And the trenches that you've cut and that we've cut and laid down in there has really just restored that natural drainage that some human activity had blocked over time. So those are the main changes that I've noticed. There's a lot more, but those are the big ones.
Why mosquito is less than before? Because before it's like a covered. We cut trees, and so air is moving.
Indeed.
And water is also we dig trench. Water also
Go.
So mosquito and like a mouse and another. We don't like bugs.
Yes.
They are like 停滞してる場所. They like not flowing.
Exactly.
They
Stale.
Uh,
Stale air,
stale,
air that's
yeah.
not moving, water that's not moving. Yeah. The land is not conducive to mosquitoes any longer. So, yeah. 確かに。
確かに。
I'm glad that I can come here and help in some small way to leave the land a little healthier than it was when I first came. I feel like that's an important thing for people to consider when it comes to the land. And I'm very, very glad that I could play just a little tiny role in that with your help and with your help. I'm looking forward to transforming the western side of this land, which of course, you've already started and I've already started, but I'm really looking forward to that, improving the water flow over there and basically planting a lot more food. That's really what I'm looking forward to. I was born in the 1970s, right? And in the time that I was born, chemical fertilizer, chemical pesticide, were transforming landscapes in the United States. My parents gardened, but at the time, we all had an idea as humans in the West that somehow everything was better with chemicals. And what I thought was a natural environment when I was a child, it turned out that that environment was not natural at all. It was transformed by humans, and it took constant maintenance as the land became more and more unhealthy with more and more pesticides, more and more chemicals. What I learned through watching you both work and watching others work in Yakushima is that it's the wild landscapes that are the healthiest ones, and the human footprint needs to be as light as possible. Another thing that I learned by watching your work and just watching the land and the garden is that I've learned more about life in the few years that I've lived in Yakushima and just worked on this land every day than I have learned in the preceding 50 years. And one of the important things that I learned is that the way that humans talk about the landscape, when they talk about brush, when they talk about varmints, we have an idea of, a classification for plants and for animals where we only value the ones that are of specific use to us, and we don't consider the value of plants to the overall environment. We do not consider the value of plants to other plants, animals to other animals. And so losing that prism was a hugely important thing and brought about a whole other kind of understanding about the land and also the human place in the land. So I'm very grateful that I had both of you as teachers and also just the land as the best teacher that I could have. Thank you.
はい、ありがとう、ボビーさん。
I like that last answer, yeah? That was pretty cool.
ありがとう。
That was good.